Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Rusty Tub, which is not to be confused with the trombone. I'm at the community hub today. I want to um, introduce the ore processing plant and the labor that I did yesterday. So let's get to it. Actually, let's go down and show where it moved to. I try to clear all this stuff up before I start, but this was tier 3, and I took everything out. It was causing too many block updates. Mechanism does a lot of block updating when it processes, it uses its machines. I took it all out. Boy, gosh, I mean, I spent 10 hours probably putting this stuff in here. And I took it into the desert. And I took it into the desert because, let's see here if my map comes up. This is the only desert biome because I was reading about brine production. And one of the things that I was reading was that you have to have you have to be in a hot biome, a hot dry biome to make salt at a fast rate. Specifically to make brine, because salt can be made in Pam's Harvestcraft with a pot and some water in a cyclic assembler, and which I had done to great effect. But what I found was that my machines were consuming they were consuming all the salt that I made, which was fine. I was able to make as much as I wanted. But they weren't able to consume it to convert it into gas fast enough to keep the machine running past 3 ingots. So I thought, well, that means that I'm going to actually have to make the gas itself. And so if I go through all the gas process, and I was using salt, and it's really convoluted how this works. So you use salt and you go to the chemical oxidizer and you turn it into gaseous brine. Well, you have to condense the brine. You know, you could turn it back into salt, but you actually have to condense the brine into liquid brine. And then you have to find the use for the liquid brine, which is in this electrolytic separator, and separates it into sodium and chlorine. Well, the sodium gets discarded because we need hydrogen chloride. So what do you do with the chlorine? Well, you combine it with hydrogen in this chemical infuser, and you finally get the hydrogen chloride. And you have to be able to make enough of this hydrogen chloride to keep these machines running nonstop. And the machines themselves weren't able to. They have a slot where you can stick salt in it, and it converts it directly. But they weren't converting it fast enough for their consumption rate. So here comes the project yesterday. You ready? Keep going. There we are. This monument of engineering is, you can start hearing the machines now. These were the electrolytic separators to get this chlorine. Yeah, because for the hydrogen chloride. And you know, I'm going to kind of go through the process here, but I started setting this up and making all the machines, and it was a disaster. And I was going through all these materials, and the idea here is to do a 1-to-5 ratio. Well, I had to, double pretty much all my materials to get to this point. And, you'll see tesseracts everywhere because I just got so exhausted from these. The ender conduits are amazing, and they've really helped out. And I love how you can stick many of them into, that's not a dirty word, but you can put many of them in the same block. But they only carry 20,000 RF, and you can see here that this one's at like 18. I'm not sure if that means that it's because these are. I don't know how much RF per tick it was, so I just kind of sectionalized it. Like I said, that tesseract in the back, that's for the stack of 3s and 4s machines going down, and this other one's going for up, and I was just playing it safe because I didn't want to set this whole thing up and then have power be the restriction because there wasn't enough power to go through the cable. And I'm pretty sure that's not the case, but I was exploring with some of the modifications on these things, these upgrades, and if you put max energy in here, they can hold like 6.5 million RF. if you put speed, you get a 30% speed increase for a 60% energy consumption increase. And I made the mistake of putting ×8 speed on some of these because I didn't want to make a million of them. But then they were consuming so much power that it was killing the battery in just a second. So, I mean, crazy. So I avoided all the speed. Now, I had to do these pipes, these gas pipes, and these have to be oriented in a specific way. And if you ever, decide to get, I'm sure this isn't going to be encouraging anybody, but if you ever decide to get into a project with mechanism, just know that the sides of the block are not configurable for these particular types of machines. The items have to go into the square boxy gray thing, and the gas has to come out the left side. And working with gases also presents a unique challenge. You can only have one kind of gas in a pipe at a time. So then I got these cyclic assemblers. They're producing salt like crazy. They consume so much water, but I got a good water setup going. Some spare parts, an extra tank. I was using this tank to purge the lines so that I could get gas tubes to hook up. Thankfully, I didn't have it. I learned most of my lessons the first time because there's so much piping that's hooked together. I would have just broke my heart. Okay, so obviously I didn't set it up. These have been running for 2 days, and they still haven't filled these tanks up. But I didn't set it up to combine the hydrogen and the chlorine. And there's a reason for that. Just as I finished this tower, I was starting to poke around with... It was when I was looking for these tubes. And I typed in gas. And the reason was I was using the Ender IO conduit and to great effect, but Ender IO conduit wasn't hooking up to this machine. It didn't recognize that it was a gas inventory. So I thought, I know that Mechanism has its own gas pipes. It has to. What the hell? Call me armor. I gotta figure that out. Let's keep it. So I was going through it and I was like, where's the Mechanism thing? And I saw this. What's this? Gas upgrade. Increase the efficiency of gas using machinery. And I can't tell you how bittersweet it is when you put this much labor into a project and you realize that all you had to do was go to town and craft this recipe 40 times. I'm just going to let that sink in. This is like iron and redstone. It's nothing. I hope the silence is indicative of how disappointed I am right now. This whole mess in 12 hours was for naught. I didn't really learn anything. I didn't pick up any new cool builds. It was an exercise of frustration and positioning and making all the things work. I could have used that 12 hours to automate sulfur, to automate a mob grinder, to accomplish the next step that I'm going to talk about. This over here is necessary for creating some of the gas that we need, which for this process we need oxygen. Normally you would need oxygen and hydrogen and you'd have to have the brine thing, but what I found is that, and I even tried to set up the brine facility because I was at this point, when I started getting this tall, and one of the things you can take away from this is if you look, let's take the center row here. I've got each of these pipe sections has 2 oxidizers making gaseous brine. It's a very slow process, and there's like 64 of them, and they only fit 8. It's like a 4-to-1 ratio. You have to have 4 times as many, if not more, oxidizers to these condensators, which, yeah, condensator. And I'll tell you, if you are interested in some long project, maybe take a screenshot or maybe come over here and take some notes because it's just a mess and I don't see this stuff online. Finding these ratios down, because if I eliminate one of these condensators, then I'll start to slowly get a backup, which is okay. And you could pick, do I want to have that backup or do I not want to have that backup? Because you can see how they're pulsing like that. That's really tough on the game performance. Am I going to tear all this down? No. No, I'm not going to tear this down. If anything, I'll pick at it. Like, I'll be like, I need a Tesseract. Then come over here and take a Tesseract. This is my big middle finger to the sky for this project. And I'll let this go until this fills up, and then maybe sometime down the road I want to make lithium, and I'll have all the material that I need to make lithium already. Because I think lithium is involved with sodium or chlorine, and lithium is for the mechanisms, superpower reactor stuff. It's a neat tech mod. I used to think that it's very overpowered, but you know what I think is it is overpowered, but it's not as brain dead as I once thought it was. I thought it was a very brain dead mod. It is a legitimate tech mod of its own right. I would kind of throw it up to I want to say IC2, but I don't think I understand IC2 as well enough. But the late game is definitely its own late game. It's not just a walk in the park, and it does take a lot of resources and a lot of manual labor, and getting the AE system up is really instrumental for this to be a smooth process. So, got some oxygen coming down. Let's see what's going downstairs. Okay, welcome to the downstairs apartment. Downstairs mix-up. The first thing that we need to know is that the whole mess upstairs was to create a few substances. Oxygen, and the intent was to mix the hydrogen with the chlorine to make hydrogen chloride. Now I only need the oxygen. I don't need any of the other stuff. And we'll get to that juncture in a second here. So got a lot of cables going on and a big mess. I don't think there's a good way for me to get in here. But there are basically 4 machines happening here. There's the chemical oxidizer, which I still need to make a sulfur setup. That's a high-functioning sulfur setup. Right now I'm just working off banked material. That chest is yellow, yellow, yellow. That's where the sulfur will go, be exported into, and then it'll be imported into here. And then I don't have very many oxidizers, and I don't think that I'm going to need more, but it could be a thing. I could need more. I'm going to use the crap out of that gas efficiency. It's going to be in everything, because the gas creation part has destroyed my soul. So this inputs from the opposite side and exports directly into this chemical infuser, but the side of the infuser that it exports into is important. The left tank holds sulfur dioxide. The right tank holds oxygen, which is being piped in. They combine together. They have to come out the front into the left tank of this chemical infuser. That's sulfur trioxide. And it takes water vapor, which is water comes into this condensator through the liquid tanks and then goes out the gaseous tank into this thing and makes sulfuric acid. And the sulfuric acid gets dispersed into these tanks. And then on the other side, it gets extracted from the tanks and goes into the backs of these things. And I think I need to double the amount of these dissolution chambers that I had. Actually, I think I need to double the, if I would say this is one set, 2 to 1 to 1, I needed to double this set, so I need to get another set of 2 to 1 to 1 in order to keep both of these tiers up at all times. And if I would have known that from the get-go, I probably wouldn't have built the second set of factories. The ratios are tough, and I wish the ratios were better illustrated on the website so that you knew, hey, I could make 2 of these machines. There's a better walkthrough, a more explicit walkthrough. They're not very good support documents on this. Mostly just to save myself the time from learning it by hand. I spent the whole day yesterday. The whole day. I went swimming very late in the evening, but aside from that, I sat here and I pounded out this project. So the sulfuric acid goes into I've laid these down in this orientation. So I started over there, I walked backwards, and I laid them down. So it goes into the left side of the machine and burns melts the copper ore into this copper slurry. And interestingly enough, that copper slurry is a gas. That was a bit confusing. I've got 2 of them going up here. This setup is not perfect. You can see these wires are crossing. At the end of a run, there'll be a little bit of material dispensed across all these. Enough for 1 ingot, but it can't do anything. You have to pull it all into one thing. So the caveat here is, and I don't suspect anybody's going to be working with this because it's a lot to learn. But if you do ever decide to change the export on what you want to have ×5 at the hub, which I haven't set a location for, you will have to come out here and purge all the tanks before you get the next run of ore going, just to double check that and to keep it running at its top efficiency. And that's because I don't have a good system. If I could just have them go, 1 through, if I didn't need to have 2 of these dissolution chambers to feed 1 chemical washer, then it would work fine. The other option is that instead of doubling, what I can do, I might do that. Instead of doubling the sets, I'll just double these machines, and I'll figure out how many speed upgrades I need to put into here, and then they can go straight across, and there won't be any of that issue. So maybe that's what I'll do. It'll be I think it'll be like a 1.7 times energy multiplier. Or maybe it'll be like a 2.4. I'll have to look. It'll be a really substantial energy requirement over just another set. But I think we're getting to a point. The culinary generators, I'm going to have enough iron to really crank out the power. So, yeah, maybe we'll do that instead. No big deal. We'll find out. I'll find out. Okay, so this stuff makes the slurry. The slurry gets pumped into the chemical washer. The chemical washer cleans it and pumps it into the centrifuge crystallizer, and the crystallizer just uses redstone flux and spins it down into these. And what's interesting, see, this is totally empty. That's why I need a double. See, I have 5 here. This one will be totally empty. And the next round of 5 will go in here, and this other one will be totally empty. So I've got 9 spots free. So in fact, what I think that means is that I need to triple. I need to triple my setup. Put 2 more sets in here, and that's going to get pretty tight and be frustrating. And I'll have to shut down the system for days to get these gas pipes to clear themselves. Anyways, okay, so this is all that stuff upstairs. That middle finger to the sky was because this machine wasn't converting an hydrogen chloride fast enough. If I had a constant set of 3 in here, it would drain it all the way down to 0, and it would eat this up as fast as it could, but it wouldn't get enough hydrogen chloride. So I thought I had to make the gas and stick it in here directly, get the gas in bulk. Instead, I just used 8 of these, and now there's no problem. I mean, heartbreak. So you pipe oxygen in the back of this thing, and it processes the stuff, the shards, and then you go, and the shards get crushed down into, or the clumps get crushed down into dirty ore, and then the dirty ore gets enriched with nothing, and then it goes to the smelting factory. The smelting factory makes ingots, and the ingots get pumped back into the ME system. That sound is so bizarre. And copper. So when I went to sleep last night, we had 3,000 of these things. Maybe it was 30. Maybe it was 6,000. I woke up, we still had a bunch left. And that's because I ran out of salt. Hopefully there's no more Pam salt in the system. No more Pam salt in the system. Some 13,000 in a few hours, if that. Even if it was a few hours, it takes a stupid amount of salt. So, so the next project probably needs to be. I'm just going to leave that running all the time. And it's not fast enough. It needs to get faster. So the next project is probably going to be. I left a sword. I need to get with Locke. I left a sword here And I can do it. I'll just set up the area, and then I'll ask Locke for some help. Because I need a soul. I need a soul. Let's see. Book. So the next thing is to set up the mob resources. I have this area set aside in the bottom here. This whole tower is going to be a duplicate of this tower right here, and it's going to contain a lot of the mob drops. Bones, blaze powder, blaze rods, maybe sulfur. But yeah, probably sulfur. I'll put a couple capped things like the necrotic bones. I could make a deep storage for that, but I almost feel like you just take a barrel, stick it off to the side, kind of like this one, and delete the rest. We'll see if it has a ferret business value, a packaging value. Yeah, that might be useful. Skulls and just whatever random things. Kind of my philosophy for deep storage is if you get a thing that's over 20,000, 40,000 is a good one. If you get a thing that's over 40,000, it gets a storage chest. Lapis, coal, redstone, marble. I've got these maze stones. I would probably put a chest up just so that I wouldn't have to worry about them ever again. You can set your threshold lower, but I mean it's up to you. But it helps to keep these clear. And just for anybody who's not super familiar, each disk can hold 63 items. Item types. You could think of them as stacks. But that stack, the amount of data that you can have is based on the storage. So the total disk, this one can have 16,000 storage. Now I don't know what like one piece of dirt. I don't know how many bytes that is. I don't have that information. But potions, each thing with a unique ID, wrenches is a type, is one type. So if I put 63 wrenches in here, I'd have 63 of 63 types, and I'd have like 100 bytes used, and I would wasted all that storage. And so the unique thing is why we have these chests here. These personal storage chests, the tool chests, the unique crafting machines chests, anything that you're going to have in onesies and twosies, anything with durability keeps you from clogging it up like that, in that fashion. And then the second one is, if you're going to have a bulk, like, for example, if I didn't have this cobblestone in a deep storage, well, it would fill, 3 drives, and that would a waste instead, because those drives are expensive to make, and this is it is not. Just a little bit of forethought, keeping the cables separate. I'm pretty happy with this one. I'm actually really happy with this ME network. I was talking to Derm, I think, the other night, and I said the next thing for this system is to make a donut of, maybe right off of here, make a donut of a column of singularity devices and link them up. And that way you could pull out a singularity and stick it in the matrix and then bring it with you to your next place and build one out for your next big project. Like I'm not going to go to Wellington Towers, but like this ore thing. If I was going to do a mod pack out here, not just mechanism, but if I was going to do a mod pack out here, like Thaumcraft, and I wanted to have a lot of Thaumcraft automated stuff, and I still wanted to have access to the ME network, that's what I would do. I would do the singularity, and you guys will see that as soon as I get into some project. I'm sure I'll at least put something up, what it kind of looks like. I had one out on the last mod pack for Industrial Craft 2. That was just saved me 1,000 trips, 1,000,000 trips. So yeah, I got to set up sulfur automation. Probably have to triple the amount of precursor machines leading into the elite factories. I know it's not pretty. I don't give a rip. Middle finger to the sky. Gosh, I mean, 12 hours before I saw that one upgrade. Oh boy. And then I'll probably clean things up. Maybe I'll move these, maybe I won't. I really should. I should disable them and move them. And right now they're making salt and sending their extra salt into here, but I kind of don't care. Maybe I'll leave it right there. I've got it all nice and lined up with the chunk. So it's just a one chunk loader. And I got one last thing before I go. The other day I turned in a bunch of many hundreds of crates. I got a couple prizes. Here's my robes of the stratosphere. Derm told me how to use that. I got one of the things that I got was from Extra Utilities, and that's always exciting because you get a times 64 generator. Well, the first one I got was and the uncrafting table is part of that, the joy, because the first one I got was a times 64 TNT generator, and I used that briefly just as a novelty. Makes 6,000 RF per tick. Crazy. The next one I got was a times 64 Nether Star generator. I haven't even turned it on. I don't ever plan on it. But you can stick it in the crafting terminal, or the uncrafting table, and for 9 levels apiece, you can get 64 Nether Stars. Amazing. And then another one I turned in was I got a times 64 culinary generator, and that thing's pretty boss, too. It produces, like, just under 4,000. I think it's like 3,902 RF per tick, and it burns, instead of burning one beef Wellington every minute or 20 seconds or something, it burns every 1.23 seconds. So that place is gonna be gross. It's produced like 5 million beef Wellingtons, and I want to say that it's at an eighth of its potential for power, but that could be a little bit too grotesque. And at 15,000 RF per tick right now, times 4, 60,000 RF per tick could probably be the best burning project that I've ever made, and not as painful as forestry. Forestry had a lot of heartache. It was research the tree, make this mega tree, find out you're lagging the server, find out that your farm can't harvest the mega tree while it's lagging the server, find out that you're at a deficit, and then really struggle and comb the internet and find all the things and find out how to speed it up in an unapparent way, and still lag the server, and then make all this material that you can't process fast enough in the way that you want to, or the ratios were always lopsided. I mean, I don't know if anybody took a look at the biofuel farm. I had a number of squeezers and fermenters and stills going, and I still was still making a gross profit of like 8 million apples a day. And I think at one time I had like 250 biofuel refineries. I mean, it was just, the scaling was all over the place. So this the Wellington Tower has been much more satisfying. So this will probably take days. This will take days to process. I've got a trip coming up. On the 2nd, the 1st. We leave on the 2nd. Is that right? We pack on the 1st, leave on the 2nd. We're staying in Illinois, and then we're going to Tennessee. And we're going to be in Tennessee for 2 days, and then right back to... And when I get back, school is going to be fucking madhouse. I've got... I've easily got a 40-hour commitment, or a 60-hour commitment every week for school, so I'm really not looking forward to that. Organic chemistry can go burn in a fiery pit. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave you with this beautiful image of my middle finger to the sky. What just a... I don't know. It's hard for me to... Oh, boy. Okay. Thanks for taking the tour. I don't know how long it's going to take to process that 30,000 ore. I'm going to set up the ME network deep storage, and then my next project will be probably going into the millennial. I could do it in the. I don't know. I gotta pick a dimension, and when I choose a dimension, I'm gonna put a mob spawning place, and then I'll have to set up a way to harvest souls with that wyvern sword, and then on to the draconic soul spawning like before, using a little bit of the ferret business to get there. Thanks again for watching. I hope it's not too long. Have a wonderful week. It's Tuesday. I'm gonna go jump in the shower and go for a swim before I have to teach today. So happy to be back at the grindstone. Take care, girl.